Hello and welcome to the Rejuvenate Podcast. I'm your host, Chrissy Hawks, and I am here with my co-host, Elwin Robinson, the creator and founder of Advanced Health Genetics and also the Rejuvenate Blueprint. And today, lovely listeners, we are bringing you another episode. We are going to be bringing answers to your questions. As we always say, please leave your comments down below after the episodes because we love being able to bring answers to you for all of the insights that you may have when you are enjoying the podcast. So I'm going to hand it over to Owen for a very quick hello, and then we will get on with it. So Owen, it's lovely to see you. I feel like it's been ages.
Thank you, Chrissy. Yeah, it has been ages. So I guess we'll do a full curtain pull behind the scenes. We haven't filmed in a month, I think, almost because of various scheduling things. And then recently I had a root canal extracted, which is something I've been trying to get done for over 10 years for reasons I'll explain probably in the next episode. I'm going to talk about that. So I've been recovering from that recently. And so I haven't slept very well. So I know everyone's always commenting on my appearance in the comment section. If I look tired or whatever, you're right. And that's why. And yes, Elwin, you said founder of Advanced Health Genetics. That is the new name for Genetic Insights. We've decided to, I suppose, rebrand. I mean, it's pretty similar brand-wise, but it's just a new name. I think just to help people understand a bit better, I like the name Genetic Insights. I know you did as well, Chrissy, but it's very general. People just don't know what it actually means, and they think it's to do with ancestry and stuff. So Advanced Health Genetics really says exactly what it is, and so that's what we've called it. Also, we've got everything under one umbrella at the moment. So if you want to book a consultation with me, that's at advancedhealthgenetics.com. If you want to get supplements that I've formulated or supplements that support your genetic type, then that's available at advancedhealthgenetics.com. If you want to obviously get DNA testing, if you want to get DNA reports, that's at advancedhealthgenetics.com. So we're trying to keep everything under one umbrella now rather than kind of having it in different sizes like we've done before. So I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I'm looking forward to doing a Q&A. I always enjoy these the most because, I kind of planned for the deep dive episodes. Whereas with this one, Chrissy is the one who's done the research. I have no idea what questions are coming, so it's kind of spontaneous and fun for me. So, yeah.
Yes. So here we go. We'll dive right on in. So this first question is coming from Claire. It's from episode 74, where you did the interview with Andy. It was like the bonus episode right at the end of your interview with Dr. Janine. So Claire says, "Hi, I am gobsmacked by this. However, and it was a reference to 2925 of that episode. She says, however, I am very much still stuck in the anxiety phase. I have led a fairly traumatic life, done a lot, been through a lot, including 2 failed relationships, 5 children, 1 passed away, dragged myself through a degree as a single mother to become a nurse, only to bury myself in constant caring and helping others, even though I do not believe in the medical model. I did it for other reasons. To the present day, I am internally freaked out by absolutely everything. My children are at a loss as to helping me. My son, 22, follows you and suggested I do the same, which I now am. I am only at the beginning of the process of getting better. I'm not even sure if the genetic test may be a few more steps into the future for me. At the moment, I'm stuck in perimenopause, anxiety, weight loss, extreme sadness, etc. I literally don't know where to begin. I'm overwhelmed. Financially, I'm not in a good position either, so I guess I'm asking where to begin. Thank you."
That's a tough situation. I actually don't remember that comment, so I'm glad you brought it up. Maybe I didn't see that. So yeah, funnily enough, I just had literally a client yesterday who, their main issue is extreme nervous system dysregulation, leading to, intense anxiety and also getting to a dorsal vagal state where they kind of shut down. It's pretty common, it's more common than people think. And when you are in that position as you are, where you have to keep going, right? You have people depend on you. You haven't got anyone who can come and rescue you and bail you out. Then a lot of times people are kind of swinging between this fast fight or flight state and then a kind of depressive shutdown state, because the fight or flight state is quite a high energy state to be in, and a lot of the time people just can't keep up with it, and then eventually things start to go wrong health-wise because You just don't have enough energy for all the systems of your body to function optimally, whether it's your hormonal system, your endocrine system, whether it's your immune system or your detoxification system or your circulatory system or your respiratory system, etc. Like something, and this is often where genetics is helpful, because that will help to tell us where it's more likely to go wrong, and we can see if there's a genetic component to it. Many uses, I guess, of genetics. Okay, so not much money, not much time. That's the worst position to be in, honestly. Generally, if you have money but no time, we can give you some helpful suggestions. If you have time but no money, we can give you some helpful suggestions. If you have neither, then, with that description, the first thing that kind of occurs to me is that this person is in the types that we've talked about a while ago. Bioenergetic types. I can't remember what we called it at the time, Chrissy, but this very much sounds like a compensated merging or compensated oral pattern. So this is someone who I'm guessing here, you can tell me if I'm wrong in the comments if you ever hear this person who left that comment, but someone who probably didn't get their needs met as a very young child. She talked about trauma, so I guess it's not much of a leap. And when you don't get your needs met, when you're at this crucial age, usually it's about 6 to 24 months, it leaves an imprint on you, and there's one or two ways you can respond. You can either respond by becoming just a very needy person who's always kind of playing a kind of infantile role, I guess you could say, and getting other people to help them, getting other people to look after them, getting other people to rescue them. Or a lot of people actually do the opposite. Like maybe they start in that needy state and then they realize that it's not very attractive and appealing to people, and maybe they're kind of disgusted with themselves of being that way. They don't like it. I've certainly heard people say that that's how they felt about it. And so they go into this other mode called compensated, where rather than looking after rather than trying to get their needs met, they go around looking after everyone else's needs. And this is especially common, I think, more with women than men, because they have more of a genetics towards nurturing, although it's certainly, I've seen plenty of men do this as well. And so basically, you end up being someone who doesn't look after your own needs and looks after everyone else's needs around you. And when that is the case, this is the type that's most likely to have chronic fatigue. This is the type that is most likely to get into some kind of exhausted state. And one of the telltale signs, I guess, that this is you is if you feel kind of upset or resentful that you're looking after everyone else's needs and no one seems to care about you, or no one seems to be, looking after your needs, then that's a kind of classic telltale sign. I say all that to say, I realize, every situation is different, but I suspect you're probably in a situation where you could find some more time to put into your health, and you probably could find some more money to put into your health, but you're probably spending that time and money more on looking after other people. And so, if this is a habit going back decades, you're probably not going to change that. That's your orientation. But what you can do is you can kind of tell yourself, I need to be okay in order to look after all these people and maybe animals and all the rest of it that I want to look after. And so I'm going to have to maybe give a bit less. I'm going to have to put up some boundaries, as much as I hate to do it, and say, no, I don't have time, or I don't have money, or I don't have resources to help you. I've got to take care of myself now. And so I'd say that is probably the first thing to actually address and look at. I can't remember what the episode's called, Chrissy, but let's put it in the description.
I've got it. I've just checked it out. So it's the 5-character personality. It's episode 41. I will make sure that's in the description below. But everything that you're just describing there, Elwin, too, I mean, I remember, because I was like that. And it took time and it took process of realizing I say yes way too much. And finding that, but I always felt like I had to. It was that sort of people pleasing, and maybe this, maybe Claire has this, or maybe she doesn't. But I know, speaking from my own experience, I had to find out, because I didn't know as well, like what satisfied me, because I always put everybody else's needs before I put my own, and that just I went into massive overwhelm and massive stress overload. So I had to just start finding out those things, just even like how I prefer to drink, because I would just accept the drink. If it came black, then fine, I'd take it, even if I might have wanted some milk in it, just because I didn't want to upset or put that person out in a way, because, oh no, it's fine, I'll have it. But it's just being able to find those little bits of things that, oh, actually, this is my preference and this is what I like, to help me then be able to identify, oh, this request is being made of me. Actually, do I want to do that? Can I do that? Is it something that I have the capacity for?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And so I think a lot of people with chronic health problems, that is a pattern for them. It's not my strongest pattern, but I also have that pattern. A bit less now than I did, just like you said about yourself, Chrissy. But yeah, so that's probably the thing to address first. I don't really know based on just a comment, of course. But it sounds like they've kind of already said in the comment, like, basically anything you're going to recommend to me, I can't do. I don't have the time, or I don't have the money, I don't have the resources. And so if you, like, the fact that you feel that way is probably the first thing to actually address.
Yeah, and then as far as the anxiety, is there anything that she can do to help just alleviate that sense within herself?
Well, loads, but I guess what I'm saying is that it's an inevitable consequence of being in a high of expending more energy than you have available, and so a depleted state sometimes is like, full-blown chronic fatigue, I guess, can't get out of bed and all the rest of it. But the far more common manifestation of it, and the far more likely manifestation of it, is this anxiety. People forget, but it actually takes energy to relax. It takes energy to calm down. So what is it? I mean, it could be a load of things. This is why I created the Rejuvenate Blueprint, to look at all the root causes of it. I have episodes on this, which, we can link as well, Chrissy, about how to address. I think we got an episode on anxiety specifically. We certainly did an episode about stress. Okay, just one practical thing. If you're perimenopausal and you're high on anxiety, you're 99% likely to be extremely low in progesterone. And just taking progesterone is probably going to be likely to make you feel better, but not necessarily. This is the thing. It can be sedating, and then it can have a kind of converse effect where actually, I've known more commonly of women actually than men, where the progesterone doesn't make them feel better, and it kind of increases feelings of irritation or anxiety and stuff like that. And that's because it's kind of forcing your body to calm down. Progesterone and allopregnanolone, which is your body makes out of progesterone, is the most powerful endogenous sedative that your body can and should be making itself, although it won't if it's depleted or beyond a certain age. And when you add that in, a lot of the time, a person actually kind of has I can't relax. They have a feeling, and this is where I started with the psychology, there's all these things I need to do, there's all these people I need to serve. And so they get irritated by the feeling of relaxation. So sure, progesterone or supplements, ashwagandha, phosphatidylserine, L-theanine, lithium, CBD, passion flower, valerian. I mean, take your pick. There's so many different things, all of which may be a good idea and may help, but they're not going to be addressing the root cause issue. And in this case, again, it's just based on intuition, but I don't think the biochemistry is even the root cause. I think the imprint is probably the neurological imprint, the habit of way of being set in place before a person even had any verbal cognition is probably what needs to be addressed. And you're not going to get rid of that tendency, but as I said, you can just make it a little bit less extreme. So you do some stuff to look after yourself, and you don't completely push yourself until you're utterly depleted of all resources, energy, time, money,
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes sense. It's that balance, the chicken and the egg. It's like changing the behavior, and then the chemistry catches along, or change the chemistry, and then the behaviors come along. It's like this, trying to do them both at the same time and being able to manage it.
Yeah. And so really, that person, by the sound of the way they describe, they need a lot of help. They probably need to work on the biochemistry, they need to work on the nutrients, probably check if there's a toxin exposure, if there's chronic infections, like you go for the whole list. But all of that is quite a lot, and it sounds like they're not psychologically ready for it. So the first thing is to kind of get in the right psychological space, I would say.
Absolutely. And as well, trying to do too many things at once can also be overwhelming and to push you over the edge, and then, there's a give up. So do what you can, even if it's just the smallest thing. Set a goal for yourself that helps you give back to yourself, even if it's just 5 minutes at the end of the day that's just for you, or a hot bath once a week where nobody disturbs you, or just something that's yours.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, Claire, let us know how you get on. And if you've got any other questions, please do reach out. So here we are moving on to our next question. This comes from the Semak and Selank. Hopefully I pronounced those right. The Best and Worst Peptides, episode 24. And this person, Dusty Daisy, just said, can you take these when you are on an SSRI?
Can, certainly. Should. That's really a doctor question. I am not aware of those having a mechanism of action of being MAO inhibitors or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which is usually what you have to worry about, like things like St. John's wort, for instance, things that people think are harmless, but you wouldn't want to take along with SSRIs, even ashwagandha, actually, you wouldn't want to take along with SSRIs. Check with your doctor, but I would try and reduce, with a doctor's supervision, the level of SSRIs. We've done episodes on serotonin, certainly. We should probably do an SSRI episode. It's very controversial. I don't know if it's going to get me kicked off YouTube. But again, I just had a client a couple of days ago who, they'd been prescribed it. It was completely not what they needed. It didn't help at all. It made things way worse. I don't know, not every case is like that, but it's very much over prescribed, put it that way. So maybe this is a person who needs it, but I would question that.
Genetic Insights provides cutting-edge, affordable DNA testing, giving you access to over 500 health reports that can help you in 3 key ways. They may be able to resolve your existing health challenges even when nothing else has worked. Using simple lifestyle changes, their reports can help you reduce your risk of developing future health challenges that you may be genetically predisposed to. And they can help you feel more confident in your health by showing you where you are genetically strong. Unlike most other genetic health testing companies, Genetic Insights tests over 83 million different variations in your genes, guaranteeing 99.7% accuracy across all of their DNA reports. They cover almost every aspect of health, including digestive issues, cardiovascular health, weight loss, hormonal and blood sugar balance, as well as nutrient needs, allergies and intolerances, and so much more. Using their system is quick and easy, and reading the reports is simple. If you've done an Ancestry DNA test, you can simply download your raw DNA data, upload it to the Genetic Insights platform, and within a few hours you will have access to genetic reports which give you a risk score for each specific issue and scientifically validated recommendations based on your individual genetic profile. Everything in your reports are based on scientific studies, and there are citation links throughout every report. If you are serious about optimizing your health and wellness and feeling great, then getting access to your Genetic Insights reports may be the most important health investment you will ever make. In the reports, not only will you gain insights into how to overcome existing health challenges and avoid future issues, you'll also discover which types of dietary, lifestyle, and even supplement protocols are best for your unique genetics. To get your unique genetic health reports, go to geneticinsights.co and use code REJUVENATE to get 20% off today. That's geneticinsights.co using coupon code REJUVENATE to get 20% off today. Here we are on to our next question. This is coming from Garrett Smith. I believe it's the second Garrett Smith episode that you did with him, episode 68. And this person has asked, what about pyroluria?
Yeah, that's a recent comment. I do remember that. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, I get why they're asking that. So pyroluria, also known as pyrrole disorder. I've talked about it before, maybe in a Q&A episode. I think actually definitely in the Dr. William Walsh episode. I talked about it quite a lot. So it's a crazy disease. It's the vampire disease. Basically, it makes you like intolerant to sunlight. You need heme, so consuming blood would be beneficial. It gives you an issue where you can't handle garlic. Any of this ringing a bell? It's kind of crazy. It's the vampire disease. But yeah, all joking aside, it's quite a serious issue. So basically, it's a thing where your body cannot. Your body's always converting things into other things, and the process of converting iron into the form that you actually need to get stuck at a certain point. It doesn't get to where you want it to go. And this point where it gets stuck, this pyrols builds up and it causes the problem. So there's two problems simultaneously. There's the problem of too much of this stuff, which is toxic, and then not enough of the stuff you actually need, which is the heme iron. And so they're probably asking it because if you have pyrols, the way of treating it is high doses of zinc and B6. And this is the interesting thing about it, actually, is it's an extremely debilitating disease physically, but especially from a mental health point of view. But it's super simple to fix, just a couple of nutrients at very high levels, and a person will feel better pretty quickly. So I think they're asking that question because Dr. Smith in that episode was saying that there's no redeeming benefits to vitamin B6. So that would be my guess as to why they're asking. And yeah, I would agree. I mean, I guess that was more a question for Dr. Smith than me. Feel free to go to his YouTube channel and ask him. But I would say, B6 absolutely is necessary at some points. I don't share Dr. Smith's view on that.
Right. And also, too, with Jacob and the HG7 protocol, we can see that there's definite benefits coming in from high doses of that vitamin from what he's been experimenting with, correct?
Yeah, and a bunch of people. In fact, he wants to do an update, which we'll get to at some point. And I think he's massively increased the level of B6 even from what it was before, and is saying that people are getting better and better results with it. I didn't mean to, make fun of that. He may be right. Like I feel like, I've kind of gone back and forth with this. I know some of the other people testing this protocol have as well. But I kind of felt like even from the early days that perhaps like his protocol was a way of being able to tolerate more B6, because B6 is an issue if you have too much of it. B6 is so important. Maybe I'm biased because it's kind of relevant to my own issues, but for increasing dopamine and reducing prolactin, for increasing GABA and reducing glutamate, which really relates to, what the previous question I was asking about, right? Like GABA is the calm, and then dopamine is the ability to focus and think clearly. It's a really reductive way of putting it, but just for brevity. So, hugely, hugely important. So, yeah, pyrols is real, and very high dosing and B6 are effective.
Great. Beautiful. So our next question comes from the Grant Genereux episode 19. It's not necessarily a question, but more of a comment, but I do have a question for you. Christine says, makes no sense. Bison is healthier. This is where Grant was saying he wished he had chosen meat over bison. Maybe supplementation of zinc or some other supplement would have helped. And I know we've done especially our chronometer episode of looking at which proteins have a lot more bioavailability, vitamins, etc. And in this opinion, would you say that bison is better or meat is better?
Okay, so do you mean beef when you're saying meat?
Beef, sorry, yes, beef.
Yeah, okay. Why did you say it made no sense? I didn't catch that.
No, this person, Christine, says it makes no sense that Grant would have chosen meat over bison because she believes that bison is healthier.
Well, it makes sense if you listen to his reasoning, and his reasoning was because beef has more fat. And so he was saying, I believe that, he would have preferred to get more calories from fat and less from protein and carbohydrate. So it completely makes sense on the level that he was talking about. In terms of is wild or kind of 100% grass-fed bison significantly nutritionally different from the same beef? As far as I'm aware, no, it's not. the difference between beef and bison is way less than the difference between beef and chicken, for instance. Like chicken is significantly less nutritionally dense. Now, I mean, that's based on nutritional tables. Of course, the truth is every animal is different within a herd, let alone a herd in one country, a completely different country, a different season, all the rest of it. Like, so, all these nutritional tables when it comes to real living plants and animals, they are, not foolproof, admittedly, but still, I stand by that. I would stand by that, despite that, for the simple reason that I just said, that, there's way more similarity between between a cow and a bison than there is between a cow and a chicken or a bison and a chicken. So I would expect them to be similar nutritionally, as long as their diet was reasonably similar. And so, I don't think it's a big difference.
Okay, and then also
except for the fat.
Right, exactly. And then that would go down into our macros and looking at that when somebody's trying to decide between, let's say, bison or meat, in that regard of, like Grant saying he wish he'd had a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was laughing because you said meat again.
I know. Sorry. Beef.
I don't think it matters.
Yeah, it's just that thing. For me, meat is beef. It's just how I've always talked about it. Yeah. Interesting. But yeah, little, bit about me there. Here we go. Our next question comes from episode 80, and it was about the Grant debate. So this comes from Roman. Thank you, Elwin and Grant. Dang, it gets more confusing for me. I started following Ray Peat diet and feel drastically better. I eat 1 medium-sized carrot every evening and have a lot of dairy, oranges, which are vitamin A source. Should I avoid it then? Could you help me out on this, Dr. Elwin? Thanks.
I think this person actually reached out for a consult. So first of all, oranges are not high in vitamin A. There's not zero, but there's really not very much, not compared to carrots. Carrots are actually high. So my opinion on this is it depends. So this is why I'm glad. This is why I mentioned that they reached out for a consult. I'm glad because it's hard for me to give generic advice on this. Do I believe that vitamin A is always bad no matter what? No, I'm not convinced on that. What I do think is the case is most people have too much and it builds up in their liver and their fatty tissue. That I'm convinced by. I am also aware that even the people who defend vitamin A, like the Ray Peat camp, who he also mentioned, they acknowledge that if your thyroid is underactive, then you're less able to deal with it and it's more likely to build up. So, and usually, not always, but more than 50% of the time when I see someone with chronic long-term health conditions, they have a thyroid issue. So that's another argument to be made that you shouldn't be, having high doses of vitamin A. The idea that you're going to be deficient in vitamin A if you stop taking it, I think is also false. I personally went 6 months with almost none, and my blood levels of retinol went up. There's Grant, who that episode you're talking about, he'd been 10 years without it. His levels, at least in his blood, were very, very low. I can't remember when, after a few years. And he'd only had benefit. But you could make the argument, I don't know if it's true, but you could make the argument that because vitamin A is this fat-soluble vitamin that goes into storage, that he's still got plenty in his fatty tissues and in his liver, and he just, he has enough. It's not a problem. Because that's whenever I have people trying to defend vitamin A, I always just say, well, how do you explain that Grant has been for 10 years without it, he's got almost none in his blood, and he's healthier than ever? Yeah. And then there's the, case-by-case nature of it. So I have plenty of dairy, because even though I had quite high vitamin A, my bigger problem was lead toxicity. And one of the biggest things you need to do for lead toxicity is to have calcium. And I do agree. I've noticed, actually, that Dr. Smith changed his mind recently, I think in the last month or two, about calcium. After saying for a long time it's bad, he's now acknowledged that actually it is beneficial and necessary. But he still is against calcium supplements. And I'll admit I agree with that. Calcium supplement is usually your last resort. Sometimes I still recommend it, because if a person needs calcium and they absolutely cannot tolerate dairy or nuts, then nuts and seeds, and that's it. There really is a negligible amount in any other food source. So yeah, it's case by case, and that's the challenge. I've made this point so many times, but I'll just make it quickly again. Like, there is no one size fits all thing. This is the thing. I have people on, Dr. Smith, people who are a fan, what would you say, promoter of Ray Peat's work, like Jay Feldman. And I am happy to share what they have to say, and I believe that they are sincere, and I know that they are helping people. But there is no one size fits all cure. That's something else I know as well. And so plenty of people do it and have great results, whatever it may be, a high vitamin A diet, a low vitamin A diet. But plenty of people don't. And so you got to find out. There's no shortcut to finding out what's right for you. The only shortcut, I guess, would be being exceptionally attuned with your intuition and just doing what's right because your intuition tells you to. But if you were doing that, you probably wouldn't be watching a show like this. So if you're watching a show like this, you're someone like me where your intuition's been damaged, maybe through trauma, toxicity, deficiency, whatever, brainwashing, whatever, right? Like, you got problems, and so you're trying to find your way out back to a healthy state. And so, yeah, if you can't rely on your intuition, I don't think the correct thing to do is to decide which guru or which system is right. The correct thing to do is to work out what is optimal for your specific, unique biochemical reality.
Well said. Yeah. And also, if you are able to financially, testing and taking a look is really key.
Yes, absolutely. And if you're not, like, treating everything as a test, as opposed to, oh, I'm going to follow this now, by all means. I did 6 months of zero vitamin A. It didn't really cause any problems, but it didn't really provide a significant benefit. I know the advocates would say you didn't do it long enough, but fine. So test things. Like, if you don't have any money to do any testing or anything, like the type of testing I'm talking about, that's fine. You can buy a thermometer for a few dollars or pounds. You can buy a heart rate monitor for a few dollars or pounds. Even just seeing that, like seeing what impact various things have, like measure what time you go to sleep at night and wake up, see what things make you sleep worse. All this kind of. We did an episode on that as well, didn't we? Like the cheap kind of simple at-home test that people can do. Like, become an experimenter rather than a follower.
Yeah, very good point. Here we go. On to our next question. It comes from our Dr. Platt episode, which is episode number 23. And this person is saying, I'm disappointed in hearing Dr. Platt paint estrogen in such a negative light. I had also heard Dr. Peat say the same thing, but my view is that God would not have the body produce a hormone that is toxic. I have learned that insufficient iodine, which is necessary to deactivate estrogen once it performs its job, is the real reason or cause for the C word, etc. Estradiol helps osteoporosis, diabetes, and other conditions. I believe the trick is to keep those hormones in balance, not to favor progesterone exclusively. And I am a diabetic on insulin, so it looks like I can't use the 5% progesterone cream without messing things up. I wish he had addressed that, because I definitely have higher adrenaline symptoms. I am even wondering if I became diabetic in the first place due to stress. Also, it's been my experience that a small amount of estradiol kept my libido high way past menopause.
A small amount of estradiol will absolutely raise libido in many cases for men as well as women. Let's break that down. I didn't want to interrupt you, Chrissy, but could you start again and I'll...
Yes, absolutely. You just let me know when you'd like me to stop. I'm disappointed in hearing Dr. Platt paint estrogen in such a negative light. I had also heard Dr. Peat say the same thing, but my view is that God would not have the body produce a hormone that is toxic.
Fair point. Now, the body absolutely does create toxic things inside itself all the time. But so I think what they mean, though, is that God would not create a hormone that is innately toxic. And that I would agree with. So just to clarify, I don't want to speak for Dr. Platt or Dr. Peat, but my position on estrogen is that it tends to be in excess, especially in relation to progesterone for women and testosterone for men. That's the problem. And so now the other reason we kind of treat it as a toxin is on a practical level, most people have too much, again, especially in relation to the other hormones, and it is the liver which has to detoxify and remove it from the body. And so in order to lower estrogen, you take things that support detoxification. So it's an easy kind of shorthand way for practitioners to kind of refer to estrogen as a toxin, because we're literally saying, do this and do this, and you'll be able to detoxify more estrogen. But it is true, you can also have too little. It's definitely true for women, post-menopause. It's also true for men who do steroids and excess aromatase inhibitors and stuff like that, and they tank for estrogen. They soon find it has a bunch of really negative side effects. So, again, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I am certainly not saying, I don't think Dr. Platt was saying, Dr. Peat I'm not as sure about, but I'm pretty sure Dr. Platt wasn't saying that like the optimal amount of estrogen to have in your body is 0. The point is this, the liver has to detoxify it, and the more adipose, so fatty tissue you have in the body, the more that is being created within your body. In our current, very little about our current lifestyles and environments are natural. But just to zoom in for a second and, let's be specific, we have way more toxins burdening our levels, especially novel toxins, than probably God intended for us to have. And we have way more fatty tissue on our body on average than God intended us to have. And so because we have fallen for the sin of gluttony among several others. And so now, again, I'm not making anyone wrong for that. I've done other episodes on that. There's leptin resistance, there's insulin resistance, there's slow metabolism. There's other reasons why a person can have extra fat. But just if we were talking about God for a second, that's probably how I would then say it, is God made us sinners and told us not to sin, and we do sin, and one of the sins that we do is probably overdoing it with things that are bad for us. And so when that happens, the liver is overburdened and the body is making too much estrogen because of the fat. So if you increase the production and you reduce the ability to excrete, what you're going to end up with? Too much. In fact, a toxic level. And that's why it's usually referred to in that way.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So carrying on, I have learned that insufficient iodine, which is necessary to deactivate estrogen once it performs its job, is the real reason or cause for the C word, etc.
All right. I disagree with that. I'm familiar with this idea that very large doses of iodine will cure all disease. I am completely unconvinced from personal experience and also talking to others. In fact, what I've noticed is it actually messes people up. Not everyone, because people don't create movements where there's 100% failure rate. Obviously, for some people it is beneficial, but a lot of people it's just too much. So yeah, I do not agree with that. I do not believe that. Obviously, again, it's personalized, right? So there'll be specific people with specific genetics and specific situations where they do need a lot more iodine. But it's certainly not like the reason why so many people have too much estrogen is because everyone needs more iodine. I don't agree with that at all.
Right. Is there a study or something out there, or have you heard about iodine, however you pronounce it, deactivates estrogen once it's done its job?
No. That's but that may be true. It may be necessary for that process, but that doesn't mean that pouring on massive amounts of extra iodine is going to fix the problem.
Okay. And we carry on here. Estradiol helps osteoporosis, diabetes, and other conditions. I believe the trick is to keep those hormones in balance, not to favor progesterone exclusively. And I am do you want to stop there? Yeah.
Just quickly.
Yeah.
So yes, the correct idea is keep them in balance, but most people, for all the reasons I've just said, have too much estrogen related to progesterone. The other thing is, whereas too much estrogen is a real bad problem, a lot of progesterone isn't. So that's the other reason why on a practical level, we act like, yeah, pour in a bunch of extra progesterone. It's rarely a problem. As Dr. Platt mentions, in pregnancy, women have so much more estrogen than, you'd have to take a whole bottle of his thing a day, I think, or even more. Like, it'd have to be an unaffordable amount, and there's really no downside to it. So there is massive downsides to excess estrogen. There is minimal downside to excess progesterone. But of course, the goal is to keep them in balance.
Absolutely. Yeah, isn't that always the goal? And I am a diabetic on insulin, so it looks like I can't use the 5% progesterone cream without messing things up.
No, you would just do it with some caution and awareness. So it helps with insulin resistance, which would actually be beneficial. But the point is just that you have to be aware that it's going to change your requirements for carbohydrates and insulin and adjust accordingly.
How does it do that? How does the progesterone do that?
Well, by improving insulin sensitivity.
Okay, right. So they just have to watch how much they're taking and looking at their numbers and that kind of stuff. Okay. Mm-hmm. I wish he had addressed that because I definitely have higher adrenaline symptoms. I'm even wondering if I became diabetic in the first place due to stress.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Right. Just being that body in that constant high stress state.
Yeah, as I talked about at the beginning, it's a very energy expensive state, and there's not enough energy for others. And if you have a genetic weakness in the pancreas, or if you have a lifestyle where you are stressing the pancreas maybe more than other organs, then it might be the first one to go. Absolutely.
Right. Good. Yeah. Thanks for breaking that down. Yeah, there was a lot to unpack in that one.
Yeah. Quite a few false assumptions, to be honest. No offense, commenter.
And thanks again for leaving the comment, because it's always great to have these kind of discussions. And if there's anything else after hearing this, please put it in the comments below and we'll get back to you on that. We come to our next question, and this comes from the Rejuvenate Blueprint episode number 62. And it comes from Uphill Bill saying, I have to laugh at these people. I wonder if they realize how expensive it would be to have all these levels lab tested every week or every couple of days. How about some reality? They all make it way too complicated and we waste time listening. Now, I wasn't exactly sure where he's coming from this, but I wanted to just bring it out because he's talking about thinking that this is wasting time or labs tested and things like that. And I just thought, you know what? It just might be something we would like to address.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, maybe this is all a waste of time. Maybe we should all just take, expensive hardcore drugs and enjoy ourselves and not worry about the future. I mean, it's all a matter of perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's so many ways to answer that. I think, the more obvious one that I've probably heard a million times, and so have you, Chrissy, is like, well, how expensive is it to end up with a serious life-threatening disease? Like, how expensive is it not to be able to work anymore? How expensive is it to get a huge hospital bill? Or, how painful and difficult it is let's say you don't, you're in a country where you don't pay for the hospital bill, but you have to wait 2 years to be seen and all the rest of it. Like, how expensive is that? So that's in terms of the expensive thing. In terms of like, is it just a waste of time? It's a perspective. I would say that comment, in my experience, will come from either one or two places. Place number one is that it's a person who hasn't really suffered with real issues that are significant, and so they just don't know what it's like. And the most common thing I hear, and I've dealt with these people a lot, is, all you got to do is eat well and your health is fine. And they all have a different definition of well, but whatever their definition is. And the thing is, it confused, because I'm quite a literal person, as you know, Chrissy. It confused me for many years why someone would say something so stupid and so obviously untrue. But I realized what it was eventually, and it's because that's their experience. So their experience, their subjective experience is, so long as they eat well, they don't have any health problems. And so they then take that subjective experience and project it out and generalize it to all other people and assume that it must be the same for everyone else as well. Ditto with the weight thing. there are people who say, oh, your only problem is that, you're gluttonous, you're greedy, you're overeating. And they're saying that because if they just control their eating, they're the right weight. And so they assume that it must be true for everyone else. So this, there's a word for this, solipsism, I think it's called. It's like assuming that everyone else is the same as you. And so that's one possible, explanation for this perspective. The other one, I think, is from a perspective of, and I understand this one. I've certainly done a lot of this in my life, more early life. Like, if you can't have something, then you act as if you don't want it. So, it's like, expensive car, like, oh, look at that jerk, driving that flash car. What are they trying to make up for, and stuff like that? And but there's a tone of judgment and condemnation, but really the actual root of it is envy. Like, they would like a car like that and they can't afford it. I haven't heard this so much of testing, but I heard this a lot around organic food. Like, who can afford this organic food? It's like so expensive.
It's a waste of time. Yeah.
And therefore it's a waste of time, and it's the same anyway, and all the rest of it. And it's like, I'm sure you can find some evidence that, you could get a tomato that was organic and not, and find out it's pretty much the same. I'm sure that's happened. But overall, there's plenty of evidence that it has less pesticides, even though it doesn't have none. It has more nutrients, though that varies based on a lot of different things. But people don't want to hear that evidence because they have decided they can't afford it, and so they convince themselves that they don't want it. So that's a really, and I'd say, just about the deadly sins earlier, gluttony, I'd say pride is the root of that. Like, it's quite, it requires humility to admit, I want that and I can't have it. And so it kind of hurts your pride. And so it's much easier for your ego to just say, oh, I didn't want it anyway. And so I think, maybe that's the root of it. And then the other point I would make is, when I see comments like that, I would love to, I can't remember the name. There's someone who has people on every week and they go through their budget with them and like help them realize where they're wasting money and where they're spending it in a reckless way. And maybe, they've got 30% interest credit cards and they could consolidate it into 6% interest loan, whatever, all of that kind of stuff. And I haven't watched that many of these, but I occasionally do. And it's just funny to see the level of delusion that people have about how much, about their finances, like the amount of money often that they're wasting on stuff without realizing. Now, this may not be true for that commenter. This commenter may be really struggling. I've been in a place of really struggling. At one point, when I was 18, 19 years old, I was living on £40 a week between two people. At another point, I was, on £3 an hour, and I was having to, sleep on other people's sofas. I've been technically homeless a lot. I know exactly what a care of address is. I've been I've slept in tents. I've slept in caravan with a door that didn't close. So I have experienced real poverty as much as it exists in a country like England, other than sleeping rough in a city, but I've slept rough in the countryside. So I understand that there are some people with real poverty, but a lot of the time, ironically, the people making those kind of comments are actually the people who are just not very responsible and wise with their money. And and nor was I, by the way. Even back then, I would spend a bunch of that money on drugs. So I could have turned things around financially. And again, I'm not saying everyone was. I just said I was. That's all. But you know what? A lot of people around me, a lot of people going to the dole office and all the rest of it, that they were too, right? One kind or another. And so, it's a choice, right? You can spend it on things that make you feel better in the moment, or you can spend it on trying to find out what's the root causes of why you don't feel good. And hopefully you can afford to do both. And if you can't afford to do either, then I do feel real compassion for you.
Yeah, it's difficult because there's the thing that you want now and the overall thing that you want, but that's later down the line. And sometimes it's just like, I just want this. I just want to feel like this now. And so it can be hard. We've discussed in other episodes. So yeah, it's not always an easy path, but yeah.
That's part of me turning things around for myself is just, putting absolutely zero budget on alcohol, cannabis, tobacco, going out, going on holiday, any kind of leisure activities. I committed 100% of the resources I had available to me to turning things around for myself. And I believe that's why I did, despite being very poor at the time. I was on minimum wage and, had no one to help me out, no one to bail me out.
Yeah, no, well, I'm glad you did, because I'm glad we met. Here we go on to our next question. It's from one of our recent episodes, the one with Haley, and this is episode 136. This comes from Dennis, and he says, is the NutrEval test something I can have done on my own? And where could that be done? Is it an expensive test? Thank you.
It is an expensive test. Now, it depends on how you define expenses. It's a decent amount of money. It's a lot of money compared to most blood tests that you would order yourself. In terms of value for money, though, I would say it's extremely cheap because it gives, first of all, just in terms of the amount of different markers it gives you for the price per marker, and even I would say useful marker, is very, very, very low. But because it is a lot of markers, it's still, a lot of money for a lot of people, which is fair enough. And if you can't do it, this is why I went into the genetics and not blood testing, because there's so much more useful information per dollar from an advanced health genetics test than anything else. And that's important to me, because of my background, which I just shared again. It matters to me that things are as affordable as possible and as good a value for money as possible. The other part of the question, no, you normally need a practitioner to order it for you, but some practitioners do a clever thing to try and get clients, which is they'll basically offer these tests for sale, like on websites that you can find if you Google it. And even like, I know in America, there's walkinlabs.com, for instance. I don't know if that serves every state, but that's one example. That's probably not an example of what I was about to say, but sometimes there's that as well. But yeah, more commonly, it's like practitioners try and get new clients, but one of the ways they do it is just offering the test. So like you just buy it online and they'll order it for you, even though they haven't spoken to you. And then what they're hoping is when you get the results, you don't understand them. And then they say, oh, I can help with that. So that's why they do it. So yeah, you can. But the Genova tests like NutrEval are more user-friendly, I would say, for the layperson than any other company, pretty much. But it's still very complicated stuff. You've got to really be into it. There's like a 300-500 page guide that goes with it that helps you understand your results. So if you're willing to go through that, if you want to, again, save a few $100s and do the research yourself, then it's usually possible depending on your country.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I definitely, I think that is an extremely valuable test to have. It's definitely given me some insights, my family too, in certain ways. But like you say, yes, it is an expensive test, but you can start. If you start there with the beginning, it's not like you have to go and, well, if you can afford it, yeah, go ahead and redo it once you've implemented all the things. But, as a beginning step, it can help put you on the right path, especially from a nutrient level or from, an energy level, with whether you are digesting your carbs or your fats correctly, all those kind of things.
For me, it was life-changing, right? I know the genetics indicated I had a tendency for lead toxicity, but it was doing that test that revealed that it was actually 10 times above the reference range. Even the reference range, it probably should be lower. So it was.
In an ideal world, you'd meet all of your nutritional needs in the form of vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, and more from the foods you eat. However, unless you prepare all of your food at home from scratch using the highest quality ingredients possible, the reality is that most of us need some nutritional support. Most of us need to take supplements if we want to look, feel, and perform at our best on a consistent daily basis. And this is especially true if you have genes that give you an elevated need of certain nutrients. And this is where Feel Younger can help. What I love about Feel Younger is that they offer a huge range of quality supplements and healthcare products formulated and endorsed by Owen Robinson, including must-haves like magnesium glycinate and vitamins B12, D3, and K2. And they do it at affordable prices with free shipping for orders over $50 without ever compromising on quality, purity, or potency. To learn more about how Feel Younger supplements can give your health a boost while supporting this podcast, please visit feelyounger.net and use promo code REJUVENATE to get 20% off your first order. That's promo code REJUVENATE for 20% off your first order at feelyounger.net. Well, great. Yes, it is a great test to do. So if you can, do check it out. I'll put the link below. So our next question comes from a clip from the Resolve Insulin episode, which is episode 108. And this clip was discussing about hypoglycemia preceding insulin resistance. Now, Tara said, do you mean that it doesn't matter if you eat a spoon of food or a plate of food, the same amount of insulin is released? So I wasn't sure if that actually, how that question came about, but I thought, oh, that's a good question. How much insulin is released, is it what determines that?
Yeah, I don't know where they got that from. I think that was from a short, not like a clip. So that might be it might have just been edited in a way that it sounded like that, but that definitely isn't what I meant. No. So to answer the actual question, it's this is where the concept of glycemic load came about. So glycemic index is the level of insulin response, not directly but indirectly. It's a perfect proxy for it. Glycemic load is like the index times quantity. So meaning, if you have something that's, let's say, I don't know, white rice, 100 on the glycemic index, roughly, it's as high as it gets. But if you have, 5 grams of that, and then you have something extremely low in the glycemic index, I don't know, beans, let's say, that are like, 30 glycemic index, but you have like loads of beans, let's say 200 grams, the glycemic load of those beans is still going to be higher than the white rice because you're having more of it. So absolutely not. It's index times quantity is the calculation as to how much insulin is being released. I might get some smarty in the comments saying it's more complicated than that. And yes, okay, I realize it's a bit more complicated than that, but like 90% of it is basically that.
Okay, great. So our next episode, again, this might be a short. It's about L-tyrosine, precursor for dopamine, thyroid and melanin. And Nisha says, I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis and vitiligo. Can I take tyrosine?
Yeah, no, you can. You probably should. Yeah. I mean, vitiligo is not really a lack of tyrosine. I don't believe it's, your immune system attacking your skin pigments. So it's not necessarily going to help, but it may. I had vitiligo and tyrosine deficiency, and now I have neither. That may be a coincidence. But, it's possible. It's possible that a lack of that building block will help. I certainly don't see why it would hurt. And in terms of Hashimoto's, sorry, was it Hashimoto's?
Yeah, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, yeah.
So this person has at least 2 autoimmune conditions. Only because if you have low thyroid function, you may be a highly adrenalized person. And if you're a highly adrenalized person and you take tyrosine, your body may quickly turn into more adrenaline and you may feel more adrenalized. So that's really the risk of tyrosine from my perspective. But I think I have to quickly do the speech about food versus supplements versus medicine, Chrissy, which is like this rigid line that people hold between a food, a supplement, and a medication it's an imaginary line. Like, so just with tyrosine, people get all uptight about like 500 milligrams of tyrosine or whatever, but it's like the average person is going to be probably consuming about 10 grams of tyrosine just in their food every day. So it's really not as much of a big deal as people think. It's just adding a bit extra in. Now, admittedly, it is refined and purified. And so if you have it on its own, it's going to be very well absorbed. And so, it could raise your adrenaline, like I just described. But if you have it with food, which is the only way that I have it, it's just giving your body a bit of extra tyrosine with its food, which will just help it. So that's probably my recommendation for anyone who does have a bad response, is just eat it with food.
Yeah, because I've got another question that is, goes along with this one from that same episode or a short, it just said, please do not take tyrosine if you have any thyroid disorder or if you have the slow COMT gene. I have both and trialed just 500 milligrams a day in the morning, and the first few days were pretty good, but after that my heart rate went tachycardia and my usually normal BP went sky high. I got horrible anxiety and insomnia. If you do try, go low and slow because I was fine the first couple of days, but then it went bad. Tyrosine not only increases dopamine, but also stimulates norepinephrine and adrenaline. I never get headaches, but it also gave me horrible headaches. I went back to normal in a day or so. So, I mean, one, we don't know if this person was taking it with or without food, but, that's speaking a little bit to what you were saying before.
They're almost right. It doesn't stimulate norepinephrine and epinephrine. It is convert. So the chain is tyrosine to L-dopa to dopamine to noradrenaline to adrenaline, and then the COMT gene is one of the things that breaks down the adrenaline, which is why they mentioned that. Which again, so they're almost right. But the real problem is that either because of some kind of toxic exposure or because of some kind of neurological habit or both, their body is converting too much dopamine to adrenaline. And I relate to that. I had exactly the same experience as them with taking the tyrosine as well. I remember it used to feel like amphetamine at one point when I took tyrosine. It was such a strong hit. So I get that. But I think that's what's going on. And by all means, I don't really disagree with anything the person says. Take it slowly and take it with food. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So our next question comes from the Ray Peat episode number 26. On the comment of the section was, sugar is the only superfood. Is Ray Peat right? And we have Felipe asking, how do you explain fatty liver in children?
What's the context of that? Okay, so the Ray Peat episode about the sugar. How do I explain fatty liver in children? Well, first of all, there could be a genetic component, but the valid counter argument to that is why suddenly so many more people got genetic disease. So that's fair enough. I would say fatty liver in children is due to toxic exposure. So I'm not quite sure why they're asking it.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense makes sense in the way that then the liver is too overloaded. It can't do its function, so therefore it's clogged and it's building up and becoming that way. Why they're asking, I don't know. I mean, I guess you would have thought fatty liver would just have been in adults of a later age, that kind of stuff, and not things showing up in children younger and younger. But toxic exposure, I think,
I mean, that's the primary thing, but it's all, it's everything. It's all the usual stuff. It's circadian dysregulation, it's nutritional deficiency, it's nervous system dysregulation, all the stuff we talk about a lot.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to do a deep dive into fatty liver at some point, Elwin, if you're up for that one.
Yeah, okay.
And you guys out there too, if you are, let us know. So our next question comes from another recent episode of the debate about retatrutide or Mounjaro, episode 135. So this person says, great video. This is a pretty deep dive down the rabbit hole for somebody who is looking for explanation on all three versions of these current peptides. Would love to see a deep dive on version 4 that's coming out that has the IGF. So I wanted to ask you, because I haven't heard about that. What is that, the version 4 that's coming out with IGF? What is that? Do you know of that?
I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, I've seen rumblings in the biohacker community. People are starting to talk about it and experiment with it. I think it's too early to say right now. Yeah, but a lot of people are just trying to create the same effect by combining retatrutide with either actual growth hormone or like peptides like ipamorelin. And yeah, it is very effective at fat loss for those people. But again, those people who are doing it tend to be already quite fit and healthy, and they are like trying to optimize, they're trying to get buff or whatever. Whereas, for other people, it's not as simple as that.
So our last question comes from our anti-aging strategy episode 103. And this person said, this doctor's brain had to be firing on all cylinders to keep up with those questions. Sharp lady. Shout out to Dr. Miriam. And Elwin has potential to be an excellent homicide interrogator if health science ever becomes less fulfilling. So Elwin, would you ever become a homicide interrogator?
I'm looking. I thought that was under the because you read that out before to ask me if we had time for it, and I thought that would be under the episode where I was trying, like I created a debate situation with Dr.
Right.
Miriam. But I'm looking. It wasn't even that episode. It was the one that was supposed to be a friendly conversation. So. Yeah, I think that's why Dr. Miriam and I get on. She has, I'd say, humility in the best possible sense, which is a very rare and very awesome quality in a doctor. But it's a humility that comes from, an awareness of her own intelligence and competence. And so, she doesn't have anything to prove to anyone. And so she's quite happy to just field questions. And I don't dig in like that with everyone, but I know that she has absolutely no issue with it. It makes me want to watch that one again. I don't know what on earth I said.
You two have a great chemistry, and it is wonderful to watch because she's so knowledgeable, as are you. And so it's great when you've got the two of you, because the questions that come up, the answers, the strategies, the things that you guys put together, it's really, there's a plethora of information that comes. So yeah, I'm glad. I really love it when you two do some episodes together. It's really great.
And I look in the comments. Next to that comment by the same person, they said, would it be true that it's impossible to lose a good deal of weight without increasing stress hormones? And Mark's to that is it's the opposite. It's actually, let me dig into that a little bit more than I actually did just in the replies. So raising adrenaline admittedly makes it very hard to keep on weight. And the reason is because adrenaline is so suppressive of appetite. And so that's why, the old diet pills of cliche housewives in the 50s and stuff worked, because basically it was just, amphetamines. To some degree, that's why high doses of caffeine even are effective. People say they increase the metabolism. I don't believe that that's the primary mechanism as to why they're effective. I believe the primary mechanism is because they raise adrenaline. And if adrenaline is high enough, you just don't want to eat, basically. Anyone who's taken amphetamines will know that feeling. You are not hungry. But cortisol is the opposite. So when cortisol is high, people tend to become inflamed and put on weight. This is the famous thing, with cortisone cream. It's basically as cortisol, and often just referred to as steroids, topical steroids. It's almost impossible to lose weight, and most people put on a lot of weight when they are on cortisone, because cortisol is such a adipose tissue promoting agent, and so it really depends which type of adrenal chemicals. I think that's why I just squeezed that one in, Chrissy, because I realized there's probably a more complex answer than the one I just gave in the comments there. It actually depends which one tends to be high, and if both are high, then even in what ratio they're high. And so I guess the better answer would be short term. You may well lose weight by increasing stress chemicals because the adrenaline will suppress the appetite. But the problem is, long term, adrenaline tends to run out quicker than cortisol. It has spikes, but then it has crashes, whereas cortisol can just be high every minute of every day for weeks, months, years, decades. And so overall, eventually, I guess the point I'm making, cortisol wins. So the weight gain will eventually win. And that's why people with excessive cortisol, Cushing's syndrome, that's known as, one of the classic telltale signs of it is that they look bloated and overweight, but in a kind of bloated water retention type of way, and red and stuff like that specifically. So ultimately, increasing stress chemicals increases weight and fat specifically. And this is why I kind of hate those studies that show that unless you are really spiking adrenaline a lot with something as strong as amphetamines and you keep taking it, but you'd have to keep taking it. And so this is why I hate like the studies that show, 6 weeks of high caffeine or something like that, it helped the person lose 3 pounds or something. Yeah, it's true. And that may work for weeks, months, even years, depending on how resilient the person is to being in that highly adrenalized state. But eventually, that a chronically high cortisol catches up to most, which is why we have an epidemic of people being overweight, not an epidemic of people being underweight in this world where everyone's stressed.
Right. Yeah. No, it's very, very true. I mean, the stress is everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. Would it, because you're saying it's impossible to lose a good deal of weight without increasing, would it be impossible? But I'd say that, just going back to what of learning about macros and making sure that you are getting enough food, and that, as we looked at in another episode of the timing of meals and making sure that you're eating for fuel so that you're not triggering that stress response, that had a massive impact on me, I know, within my stress levels and my mood. So, that's another thing to bring in here, because I could see it where people are, yes, intermittent fasting, it works for some people. It's appropriate where it's appropriate. But if they're going for longer and longer periods of time, then that adrenaline is spiking, the stress hormones are spiking. So it's this figuring out of that balance. But I know what worked for me was definitely making sure I was supplying my body with enough fuel to keep me at a good place.
Yeah, it's a good idea to bring that in. Yeah, I'm using examples like amphetamine because it's extreme, but you're absolutely right that, the more common way, especially the kind of person who's watching a show like this, is going to be spiking their adrenaline is by not eating. You're 100% right. That's like not eating on purpose. And it's, it's a vicious circle. You don't eat on purpose because someone told you it's a good idea. And then your adrenaline goes up, and then your adrenaline goes up, and then you don't want to eat. And generally, people with high adrenaline, they don't want to eat in the morning, and they do want to eat at night. And of course, if you're eating a lot at night, your body's more likely to hold it and turn it into fat. And so it's a vicious circle. And yeah, the same thing happens with intermittent fasting. Short to medium term, it can help you lose weight, just like short to medium term taking stimulants can help you lose weight. But the problem is, it's hard to stick to for most people. And then when you stop sticking to it, you're going to put all the weight on and a lot more. And sticking to it isn't even a good idea. But that's another conversation I've already said in previous episodes. It is case by case, though. Like everything's case by case. And so I would say, if you want to skip a meal, then the best meal to skip is probably the last one. But you shouldn't be skipping meals if one of your issues is that you're adrenally overstimulated. That's my general position. For the reason you just said, Chrissy, you're absolutely right.
Well, this has been brilliant. We love it, guys, when you deliver your questions to us so that we can have these kind of episodes, because it sparks conversations. And we can also dive deeper into some of the replies, especially if Elwin has already, as he beautifully does, it replies to all of your comments. So as well, if there's anything else or any other episodes that you guys would love, or topics that are interesting to you that maybe you'd like to hear us dive deeper into, or Elwin really, take it on, let us know and put that in the comments. But before we close, Elwin, is there anything else you'd like to share with our lovely listeners?
Check out advancedhealthgenetics.com. If you are interested in losing weight without abusing stimulants or starving yourself, go to advancedhealthgenetics.com/hormetics.
Beautiful. They can be part of a clinical trial with some of the products that are going on there, as you might have seen in some of our last couple of episodes. So check those out. And as always, it's so wonderful having you all here, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed that, I recommend watching our latest episode, which you can do by clicking above. And make sure to subscribe, like the video, comment, and share with anyone who you think might appreciate it. Thank you.